Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's Freedom Train International Special Report. I'm Jim Ferguson, and today's programme is one of the most important broadcasts we've ever delivered. We meet at a time when trust in institutions has collapsed, when governments no longer defend the people, but defend themselves, and when the world is quietly shifting into a new era of economic control, biological manipulation, and geopolitical realignment. And tonight, we're straight into the heart of it. Our first guest needs no introduction, the one and only Godfrey Bloom, a former member of the European Parliament, military officer, author, and one of the sharpest economic minds alive today. Godfrey and I dive deep into the truth about modern banking, the war on cash, fractional reserve insolvency, and why gold and silver has become the last refuge for ordinary people in a world where banks refuse to let you access your own money. His righteous anger is justified, and tonight he explains why. Well, thanks very much indeed. Welcome to the show. I am Jim Ferguson. I've got a great guest on with me. He's no stranger to the show. His name is Godfrey Bloom. Godfrey, great to see you, mate. How you doing?
And you, lovely to see you, and thank you very much for inviting me on again. And I know you've been dodging all over Europe at the moment, spreading the gospel, as it were.
Absolutely. It's been busy. I'm not long back from Brussels and Berlin. I was actually speaking in the European Parliament. Now, you're actually a former member of the European Parliament. You are a former fund manager. You're a former military officer with the artillery regiment. You're also doing a lot of, you've got a fantastic website on gold and silver. Where can people find out about you and in particular that website?
Well, that website is simply Godfrey Bloom, small case, .uk /gold/. But if you just get onto the ordinary Godfrey Bloom .uk, you'll find everything I do. All that costs no money, no subscriptions are required. It's totally free, and there's interviews and articles, direction to all sorts of articles, and indeed, of course, some of our past stuff that we've talked about, Jim. And if I may toot my own horn for a moment. Over the last 2 years, you and I have never been wrong about anything. So if you want to know what's happening in the future, you might listen in to Jim and I when we get together.
We do. We set the world to rights. So you're also an author, Godfrey. In fact, you've written The Magic of Banking. Is that right?
Yes. The Magic of Banking is on Amazon. There's lots of graphics in it. The graphics are slightly out of date now, but that's not the point. The city, my friends in the city helped me bring it right up to speed, but that's not the point. The point is it explains money, it explains banking, and it explains all you need to know. And it's an aid memoir rather than a book. And I think it's a tenner or something like that. But you'll save an awful lot of money if you read it in one way or another, because the banks, as we know, are out to steal your money. If whatever Keir Starmer doesn't steal, the banks will steal it too.
They're all as bad as each other. And it's a very important point. And I was just telling you before we went to recording that I've partnered with Miles Franklin Precious Metals in the United States for the American market, North American market. The CEO and owner of that company. It's a $13 billion company. His name is Andy Scatman. And you know, gold and silver is becoming more and more talked about, but the banks don't like people buying gold and silver, do they, Godfrey?
They don't. And of course, having the largest UK website on gold, people get in touch with me from all over the country all the time. And one message that's coming back, or a couple of messages, one is that more and more people are realizing that paper money is doomed, and gold coins and indeed some silver coins are coin of the realm. They don't carry capital gains tax, and gold coins don't carry VAT, unlike silver coins. And it's been a store of wealth, of course, as you know. Gold has been a store of wealth for thousands of years. It's not an investment. It's not an investment, it's a store of wealth. And it gets you out of the paper money system, which is dying as we speak. And of course, it's out of the banking system, which is also going down. And we'll see what comes in the new year. But there are banks are insolvent under the concept of fractional reserve banking. You do not want your money in a bank, and you do not want your savings in paper money. So it's a question really of saving yourself. And the reason why, just this morning, which has made me furious, I'm a bit het up, as you can probably tell. There's a man, and he's gone into a bank, Lloyd's Bank, but they're all as bad as each other. It happens this morning to be Lloyd's Bank, and he decided to put £100,000 worth of his life savings into gold coins, sovereigns, that preserve his wealth. He's in retirement, coming into retirement, and his bank has refused to let him do it. He's got on to the senior manager, and they won't even talk to him. Now, I'm not going to bore everybody to death, but the Bank Charter Act of 1840, if you're watching this clip, if you're watching this show, do not believe for 1 minute, because your money is in the bank on deposit, that it's your money. It's not your money. All right? Get that in your heads, people. It's not your money. Your account that you get, your account statement, say you've got £100,000, is a promissory note. It's a promissory note. It's an admission that the bank had it, but it's not an admission that the bank is yours. And many of you I know will have had this. It's not just a question of buying gold. You go in and you want to buy a car. You want to buy a car from a neighbour because you've bought his car. He's getting rid of his Mercedes or whatever it is, £20,000. They won't let you do that either. Go into the bank and try and take out £5,000 in cash, even if you give them notice. They won't let you have it without an explanation to some greasy little bank clerk what you want it for, like it's their business. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. You can see how angry I am, and it's happening daily.
Yeah, but it's called righteous anger. We're entitled to be angry about injustices like that. You know, about 6 months ago, I reported on a fellow. He recorded it on his phone. He went into one of the local banks. He wanted to withdraw £5,000 to buy his son a motorbike, and they just weren't having it. They said, well, what type of motorbike is it? You know, we need to know what kind it is. And he said, well, hang on a minute, it's my money, right? And I want £5,000. It's in my account. It's in credit. It's in good standing. And they wouldn't give it to him. Then he said, well, I need to speak to the manager. So they were trying to get the manager to talk to him. The manager wouldn't want to talk to him. A similar story to what you're talking with your friends. Why are the banks so reluctant to give people money, which is in their accounts?
Well, I think the answer to this actually is, if you think back to 2007, 2008 Northern Rock, where the queues were around the block with people wanting their money out, what they want to do is to control people taking their money out. And to the extent I gather that bank clerks and junior bank managers are on a bonus for stopping people withdrawing large sums.
Oh,
or indeed any sums. They're on a bonus for stopping you doing it.
A bonus. So it's in their interest not to give you your money. They're getting paid a bonus for holding on to that money. Is that right?
That is correct. And of course, it depends who you are. Now, if you are let's say just you're a professional man or professional woman who's in a different field. Let's say you're a surgeon, or you're somebody who is not in the money world, not in financial services per se. They're doing something else. My wife's a physiotherapist, for example, but you could be a senior nurse. You could be anything at all in the professional field, and you've got your life savings, and they go into the bank and want this, whether it's £5,000 motorbike or £10,000 or £100,000 worth of gold, and they intimidate you. And they do it by bad mouthing wherever you're going. What kind of motorbike? You know, like your bank clerk has got the faintest idea what a motorbike even bloody well is. And the 100,000, and you've got some little bank clerk saying you cannot have your £100,000 going into gold, right? Well, who's the biggest buyer of gold at the moment on the face of the planet? Central banks. So the central banks, which really are the daddy of retail banks, can buy gold, and they're buying gold in big numbers, but little people can't buy gold. You're little people. You have it in your nice little deposit account, and we'll give you 3 or 4% interest, and it doesn't matter, inflation is really about 8 or 9%. Leave it in the bank. And the reason for that is I made this point when I was speaking in the European Parliament, when I was on the Monetary and Economic Affairs Committee. We have this thing called fractional reserve banking. If you go on my website, you can find my speech slagging it off. Fractional reserve banking. It's only 2 minutes, and I punished them all in the chamber. It's the concept that if you put in £100,000 into your bank, your life savings, say, fractional reserve, Basel III, the International Bank of Settlements, and all the big shots in banking say that your retail bank only has to keep 10% of that, and they can lend on the other 90,000. Excuse me. So then they lend on £90,000 and they lend it to somebody else down the road in another bank, and you've got fractional reserve that are only obliged to keep 10%, which is why when you walk into a bank, there's no real money. It's all electronic. They don't have the money. If they don't have your money, that's the reason they won't let you have it back, because they don't have it. And so they will only give the money back to people who are making the most noise or have the most clout. And I had this problem with HMRC, for example, on a different subject. My MP is David Davis. He lives down the road, neighbour. Good man, actually. Good constituency MP, whether you're Labour or Conservative. I had the HMRC would not acknowledge the fact that I'd paid £2,000. They'd cashed the cheque and everything. It took 6 months and I couldn't get anywhere. Now, I got in touch with my MP, David Davis, Sir David Davis, as I must now call him. And he picked up the phone, because he's been around, David Davis, and he picked up the phone. He got straight to a permanent undersecretary responsible for HMRC. I was sorted out in 48 hours. No names, no pack drill. It was sorted out. And if I have problem, because I'm buying gold on Monday, because I've just sold my house, as we said before we came on air. I've sold my house, and that money is going straight into gold, because I don't want paper money, and the banks certainly are not going to have it, but it's got to go through the bank to buy the gold. And I know they're going to try and give me a hard time. So I shall sit down and I shall say, because they'll try and hide behind regulation. Oh, well, we don't want, you're a silly old little man, and we don't want you to be drilled out of your money. We don't want you to be conned in any way. And I say, just a minute. I know more about banking than you will ever know, because I was in the city for 50 years. So don't tell me about banking. Don't tell me I don't know what I'm doing. I bloody well do, damn you.
But that's that. I mean, in all seriousness, go back to that fellow that clip went viral. Alex Jones picked up on it. It was all over America. People are going, "What's going on in the United Kingdom? You can't get your money out your bank." Well, this is the reality, and it's coming to the United States too, because all banks are interconnected, and all banks are as dubious as each other. So, I mean, first of all, you say gold is not an investment, and you're absolutely right. You don't buy gold or gold sovereigns or gold maples or eagles or whatever denomination of currency it is. You don't buy it to make money. You do it to protect what you've already got, because gold is the standard that's been existing for thousands of years. It's the safe haven that people go to, and that's why we've partnered with Miles Franklin special metals in gold and silver in the United States, because people see that there's a problem and the banks are pretty much insolvent, and what they're doing is really, really dangerous, but it's also really unethical. People assume their money is safe in a bank, but it's not. When you talk about people taking money out of their accounts, it's not because you have a problem with the banks, it's per se like a personal problem. It's you see how they're misusing their money. But to think that there are bank clerks or managers getting bonuses just to hold on to that money and not give that money to the people whose money it belongs to is unbelievable. Do you think, when you see, although gold and silver, gold in particular, is a hedge against loss of wealth, but when you see gold, for example, in the last year, I think it's gone up by 60% over the spot price. You see silver, I think silver's gone up by 70%. So you don't buy gold and silver to make money. You do it to protect it. You're like transferring your wealth into something that is tangible and will hold its value no matter what's going on pretty much in the world, in particular where we saw the crash in 2008, 2007. Do you think that there might be some kind of rocky road ahead when it comes to the financial markets? And if so, when do you think that could happen?
Well, we know that banks are fundamentally insolvent. That we know. We know that fiat currency or paper money, call it what you like, is debt. And you're not old enough, Jim, to remember the old £5 notes when I was a very small boy. I promised to pay the bearer on demand in gold the sum of £5. It was a great big white thing. And so that was the promissory note. But paper money is a promissory note, as indeed is your account statement from your bank. It's a promissory note that, yes, we have your money. Yes, you gave us your money. And here's an account which endorses the fact that you gave it to us. Have we got it today? No, we don't have it today, which is why you can't have it. And this is the key. So if you look at, let's take a quote from JP Morgan, going back to 1912. He said, only gold is money. Everything else is credit. It's a promise. Hence the term promissory note. And if I may just quickly explain the concept of the hedge against inflation, if you take the 1900s, the 1800s, the 1900s, as it were, let's just take that as an example. I would argue, and I know you're an historian too, and I'm a keen historian, that the staple commodity of the 17 and 18 and 1900s was bread. All right, it was bread. So Britain went off the gold standard in 1815 in the Napoleonic Wars, fought the Battle of Waterloo, went back onto the gold standard in 1819. So we saw from 1819 to 1913, when it was on the gold standard, the price of a loaf of bread did not move at all in nearly 100 years. So it's a preservation of wealth, and that's a staple commodity. I would argue that in the 20th century, I'm sure you'd probably agree, or most people would agree on this, that the staple commodity is oil. Mm-hmm. Now, if you get a graph and you have a careful look, and they're available, they're on my website, but you can find them by Googling them up. Gold as opposed to oil barrelage, for example, you will find that a barrel of oil, the staple commodity of the 20th century and 21st century, has not moved in value against gold. It's by exactly the same amount of gold of oil today, roughly speaking, as you did in 1900. So that shows it's a hedge against inflation, whether it's bread or whatever the staple commodity can for the next century, which I would argue will still be oil, in spite of what all the greedy weenie say. It's about oil. And so this is the fact of the matter. Now, people say, oh, yes, but my house has gone up more. Or, yes, I have an equity portfolio account that's gone up more. Well, they're quite right. That's okay. I'm not arguing that point. But that's with commensurate risk. So equities are risks. Bonds these days are risks, as some of the banks are beginning to learn, because when interest rates go up, the capital value of your bond goes down. As Michael Caine never really did say, not a lot of people know that. And what we need to do is and that's why this book I brought out several years ago, it's in its second edition now, 5 years ago, was trying to help all these people. We don't cover this in schools, Jim, as you know. We should be taught about certain things: banking, money, the principles of English law. We should be taught about these things at school because they matter. Okay, it's nice to learn French. It's nice to learn this, that, and the other. But fundamentally, when you come into the real world, you need to know about these things. Otherwise, the banks or politicians will steal it. And the other good thing about, of course, is gold. If it's in the tea caddy, and you can get over £20,000 worth of sovereigns in a tea caddy, or somewhere secreted, if Keir Starmer or Rachel Reeves can't see it, they can't steal it. And I use another analogy, and excuse me for people using it again. Would you leave on a bank holiday in Brighton on the back seat of your car a very expensive camera? Would you do that and leave it overnight on a bank holiday? No, of course you wouldn't. Would you go on holiday for a fortnight and leave your front door open? Of course you wouldn't. So if your money is in a bank or anywhere else that Keir Starmer can see it, he will steal it. And bear in mind, how does he do that? Because most people don't understand what's going on, the boiled frog system. He can't steal money from very rich people. Very rich people know the game. They've got clever sods like I used to be in the city telling them how to play the game. Quite legally, no skullduggery, but you can easily stop things like inheritance tax, bits and pieces, if you know what you're doing. But most people don't, and it's too late. The government's stolen it, it's too late then.
Talking about politicians stealing our money, we're going to come on to Rachel Reeves in a moment. But first of all, we're going for a quick break. Don't go away. You're going to want to hear what Godfrey's going to say about this. We'll be right back. Over the past few years, we've watched the world change rapidly. Governments printing money out of thin air, inflation biting harder than ever, talk of central bank digital currencies, and a financial system that feels more fragile by the day. People ask me all the time, Jim, how do I protect what I've worked for? Well, my American viewers, we've partnered with Miles Franklin, one of the most respected precious metal firms in the United States. They've been around since 1989, and they're family owned, and they've earned an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau in an industry where trust is everything. If you're thinking about gold or silver, whether it's your first purchase or a larger investment, Miles Franklin will walk you through the entire process. Real people, real service, real assets you can hold in your hand. No automated box, no nonsense, just honest expertise. And here's the important part for our audience. We now have our own dedicated affiliate with them under the name Jim Ferguson FTI. If you place an order under $10,000, simply visit milesfranklin.com. If your order is over $10,000, they ask that you order directly by emailing info@milesfranklin.com or calling 952-929-7006 and just mention Jim Ferguson, FTI. This partnership is about one thing, helping you protect your wealth in uncertain times with a company we genuinely trust. So if you're ready to take that step, head to milesfranklin.com or reach out to their team directly. It could be the smartest moves you make. And we're back. Okay, Godfrey, politicians stealing our money. Rachel Reeves, or should I say Rachel from Accounts, is about to deliver her budget for the United Kingdom. I'm wondering if we're going to end up being tipped into recession. What do you think she's going to do?
It's the fundamental strategy rather than the tactics that always interest me. The strategy is how you handle the concept of taxation and public spending. The tactics are actually how you go about doing something about it. And of course, the modern politician only has one answer for the so-called black hole, or call it whatever you like, or the debit, or the current account deficit. Doesn't matter the terminology. So you have this sort of problem, but they believe in more taxation to cover the increase in public spending. What they don't do is sort out public spending. So the only way you can balance your books, and I'm up here, as you know, in Yorkshire, any Yorkshire housewife knows, if you want to balance your books at the end of the year or the end of the quarter, the only way of doing it is to make absolutely sure that your outgoings aren't more than your incomings. You can get away with a quarter, you can get away with a few months because you've got some big bills, and then you tidy at Christmas, for example, then you tidy for the new year and you start spending. Rachel and Keir Starmer have no concept of not spending money. They don't know how to not spend money, and the previous government were no better. So welfare goes on, climbing and climbing and climbing, welfare spending. And if you want to see what a disastrous thing, it's the amount of money that goes abroad. We spend around about £1 billion a month. £1 billion a month goes out on foreign aid, which is largely unaudited. Now, my wife is coming up to 65 next year, and there's no pension for her until she's 67. And I doubt there'll be a pension when she's 67. She's worked all her life as a chartered physiotherapist. Now, that, in my view, is a scandal when she's paid all that tax and all those national insurance stamps. That is a scandal. Why isn't there any money for her when there's £1 billion in unaudited foreign aid, billions of pounds for warfare in the Ukraine, which is a lost cause? It's over. It's all over by the shelving. It's running into billions, 3 billion, I think, last year. And every time Zelensky goes into number 10 Downing Street, he gets another check, like a wayward teenage son. And so if they stopped this waste of money, quangos, they've increased the number of quangos, which I didn't think was possible. I didn't think it was possible. There was 1,000 when they came into office. There's another 200. And Cameron and his mob were no better. Don't pretend the Conservatives are any better. We're still welcoming in mass immigration, putting them up 4-star hotels, pocket money, and healthcare. And don't talk about gangs and all that kind of thing. Don't tell me about gangs and illegal. They're being brought in deliberately to stay in hotels. And for everyone that comes in, somebody who's a wealth creator goes out. People are living.
Oh yeah.
They're not leaving personally. They're sending their money aboard.
Let's just go back to Zelensky for a minute. I mean, he's a second-rate actor. I mean, literally, he was an actor. He's now a multi-billionaire. Well, how did he become a multi-billionaire? Well, he became a multi-billionaire because of all the tax money that was sent over from the UK and Europe and America and all over the place. He's got properties in Florida. He's got properties all over the place. I mean, this man is as corrupt as they come. And he is perpetuating this war, which you're right, is a completely failed cause. I mean, you're a former military man, but your acumen on this is 100%. When you see the amount of waste that's going on and the dangerous nature of these European globalists that want to continue this war that is effectively lost, but they want to enlarge it. They've got a real hang-up with Putin and with Russia, who, in my opinion, are looking to have this resolved. I think Trump and Putin together would have it resolved for the European globalists poking their noses in. The other point that I want to come back to you on is this mass illegal immigration that's going on. As a former military man, you've seen military veterans homeless on the streets. We've seen our old age pensioners. Many of them have to choose between eating or heating their homes. Whether they buy food or whether they pay it on electric bills to keep warm. Yet these illegal migrants, and they are illegal, they've come into the country illegally, which makes them criminals. Instead of being arrested and detained and sent packing, they're being given 4-star hotel treatment, they're being given mobile phones, free healthcare, dental care, cash handouts, and if they rape somebody or abuse a child, they're out before you know it. Yet we have 12,000 British journalists and independent media who have put out hearty words on a meme on Facebook or X or whatever it is, doing time at His Majesty's pleasure. And then, of course, we've seen the injustice of the two-tier system, the two-tier justice system, the two-tier policing system that's going on. This can't continue in the UK, can it?
Well, I did a wee post on this on my channel. Just, I think, a couple of weeks ago. And the headline that my producer put on top of it was, "They hate us. They hate us." Now, if you look at people like, let's just take for a start, Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer had a very unfortunate, and I was on Professor Dutton's show about 6 months ago, and he was outlining this kind of thing. It's on my channel. He was explaining what the problem is. We all know, do we not, that there's something wrong with Keir Starmer. There's something wrong. He's got a sort of preclinical sociopathic tendencies. But if you look at his, it's called parentalizing, I think Professor Dutton was explaining, that when he was 11 years old, his mother was very ill, and he became her carer, if you will. And that meant he couldn't play with other kids, he couldn't do this, he couldn't interact with other kids, because he was looking after an ill mother, which is a tragedy for which we would all feel very sorry indeed. But this has made him, it's made him slightly odd, a slightly oddball, because he hasn't been brought up properly in the normal way that most of us are, you know, with mum and dad and friends and all the rest of it, for better or for worse, but that's how it is. But that's not his case. And we know he was not just flirting with Marxism at university, like many do, he was a dyed-in-the-wool Marxist and still is. So he doesn't believe in our institutions. This is quite deliberate, and I've spoken, I know you have, to various people in the political sphere, and I include leaders of reform on this particular matter, who cannot accept it's anything but gross incompetence and stupidity. That's what they think we're dealing with. You actually hear the opposition of all parties saying, well, we need to get rid of the European Court of Human Rights because we can't do this and we can't do that. This is complete nonsense, absolute nonsense. Can you imagine if there had been a European Court of Human Rights in 1939, 1940, Winston Churchill coming on the radio and saying, there's nothing we can do about this invasion from the Nazis because we can't do it because of the European Court of Human Rights. You know, we mobilized, we had the Royal Air Force, we had the Battle of Britain, we had the Battle of the Atlantic. The only way we can stop this is by mobilizing the Royal Navy, what is left of it, the Royal Navy and the Royal Marines, and towing them back. And you could finish it in a weekend if they wanted to. And if I were Prime Minister, and nobody's saying this, incidentally, nobody is saying, I'm not going to bother with human rights, I'm not going to bother with anything like that. As soon as we have a majority in Parliament, what I will do is blast the Royal Navy, and we will tow them back or sink them, as we did Philip of Spain's Armada, as we did with the threat of Napoleon, and as we did with the threat of Nazi Germany. We are at war here. This is an invasion. This has got nothing to do with anything else other than mobilizing our forces, which is the primary responsibility of the realm. Protection of the realm is the primary responsibility of government.
Well, what you might not be aware of, I mean, you might, because I know we watch each other's shows because I love the things that you post, but I did join Advance UK about 3.5-4 months ago, because Ben Habib, who started Advance UK, he's a great guy. We became good friends. We were in the Brexit Party together. He's a former MEP as well. And he is also a very successful London businessman. But not only that, he asked me to join Advance UK College. So that's about setting policy on things like mass illegal immigration, on military, on all the things that you would expect a government to do it. But actually, a couple of months ago, because I've been traveling all over Europe, doing a lot of work in America, Canada, all over the place, he said, him and his chief of staff asked if I could go for a meeting with him. I was actually in Warsaw at the inauguration of Karol Nawrocki, the new president there, and he said, would you come? We want to have a meeting with you. So we had a meeting, and they said, look, would you be willing to take on the role of international ambassador for Advance UK? And of course, I said yes. But he has made very clear, and very, very, very dynamically, that he is totally opposed to this mass illegal immigration. He will put an immediate halt to it. He will mobilize British forces and the Royal Navy to put an immediate stop to it. And we will deport these illegal men who are here. They're not asylum seekers. They are young men. They're not women and children. They're young men that's come in age between 19 and 30. They are coming in here quite deliberately, systematically, because Starmer wants that. He's part of the globalist order. And people sometimes say, why are they allowing this? Well, because globalists want a one world government system that they control. And strong national sovereign countries are a big obstacle to what their global plans are. For example, if you take Hungary, Viktor Orban, he is absolutely adamant there is no mass illegal immigration coming in here. And I was at CPAC in Hungary earlier on in the year. And in fact, I met some of the members of Viktor Orban's cabinet. And one of the things that you notice in Budapest, the capital, you can go out there, the streets are clean, there's virtually no crime, and women and children are safe. And they can go out, well, women can go out if they want to, till 2, 3 in the morning, whatever, they don't get attacked. You contrast that with what's happening here in London, and it's completely different, or Berlin, or Paris, or any other European capital that is being overrun right now by massive numbers of men who have no affinity to the country. They've got no interest in our history, our culture, or our identity. They're there to get whatever they can get and contribute nothing. And there's a huge difference between normal migration and illegal immigration. Why are the governments, Godfrey, perpetuating illegal activity?
2 points there. Firstly, there's a long interview with Ben Habib on my channel, and it's posted on my website. So if you want to see it, and He is an extremely good man, and he's the only one that's really talking cast iron common sense. He's saying what he's going to do. He's not wringing his hands saying on the one hand, on the other hand. And so fundamentally, he's a good bloke, and I wish him well. Now, let me publicly say I wish him well. I think he's a damn good bloke. And it's a great shame that he's not still a member of Reform. But leaving that aside, and I'm glad you've weighed in with him as well, and well done you for that. But of course, this is the point, isn't it? This is the point. Mass immigration, destruction of our institutions, and don't forget the principles of English law. And now there's a whisper we're going to get rid of trial by jury, trial by your peers, which goes back to Magna Carta, 1215. So we're getting all these things. It's because he hates us, and you can find on my channel, it's only a shorty, it's a short clip. They hate us. They all hate us. Ed Miliband hates us, which is why that they will not let us get oil. We're buying Norwegian oil, billions of pounds. They have a huge sovereign fund in Norway. We're buying their oil. We're buying all sorts of stuff from all over the world, where we can quite easily, it's in our sea as well. You've only got to go and drill it. And it's not just a question, by the way, on that subject of Ed Miliband not letting it because it's greeny bollocks. It's nothing to do with that. The corporate tax on BP, if they went to drill in the North Sea, is 70%. So you could say, no, go ahead and do it. They wouldn't do it because the tax is too high. You pay 70% corporation tax. It just isn't viable. So this is quite deliberate, and this is why I cannot understand why some members of the Conservative, but some I can understand because they're socialists anyway. They were never Conservative to start with. But we have Conservatives, we have Reform, we have other people who simply can't stand up and tell the truth about what's going on if they understand it. And I know, as you know, a lot of these people personally, and I have to be brutally frank, some of them are very bright. So I'm not sure whether they're holding back or they're controlled opposition. I don't know what's going on, but not many people are standing up and saying, this is what we've got to do. No more money goes abroad. We'll make it unconstitutional. No more overseas aid. No more money for the Ukraine. No more money for illegal immigrants and hotels and all the rest of it. And we'll have a jolly good look at whoever else got through the front door and who is not actually contributing to society. And there was I can't remember who did the thing, it's just out last week, you might have seen it yourself, as where these immigrants come in, what's actually happening as contributors of wealth. We know that 5 out of 6 immigrants do not contribute, because by the time you've taken the NHS into consideration and education into consideration and all the other things and welfare benefits into consideration, only about 1 in 6 actually contribute over their lifespan to the wealth of the nation. They're not like the immigrants of yesteryear. And this is nothing that a lot of people don't understand. There's nothing wrong with immigration. I'm not hostile to immigration. I want whoever comes here, though, to contribute. I don't think that's unreasonable. Can you contribute? If you can't contribute, bugger off.
Yeah. Well, the problem with Reform UK, Nigel Farage has also said that he won't stop women and children coming in. But I mean, that's the same thing. It's still putting a burden on the National Health Service and schooling, on housing, all the other things. So Bennett B. Habib is also in direct communication now with Elon Musk. And Elon Musk has officially endorsed an advanced UK government, which is huge news. That's been seen across all of the networks that I'm involved in Europe, with politicians, members of the European Parliament, and of course in America as well. They're now seeing that there is a viable alternative to get Britain back on track, because I don't believe that Reform are really tackling the issues that they need to be tackling, and they've upset their base a lot as well. I mean, we've seen lots of their former candidates leave because they didn't get support, and also if they spoke out on, particularly on things like mass illegal immigration, they were ostracized or cast out of the party. That's no way for them to be behaving. So Advanced UK are very much on target. They are rocketing up, Godfrey. I mean, I was quite shocked to see just how quickly that membership grew. It took Reform UK 5 years to get 30,000 members. Reform Advanced UK achieved 40,000 members in a matter of months. Absolutely incredible. I think it was about 3 or 4 months. So I think that goes to show that there is a new rising political power coming in. And I appreciate what you've done with Ben Habib, having him on your show. He is a real voice in the wilderness, and he's calling it out. So going back to Rachel Reeves and her budget, I mean, in my opinion, we could see a disaster unfolding just within the next week or so. If she gets this badly wrong, which I suspect she probably will, we could see Britain plunged into a recession. And the other thing that is worrying people is, of course, the rising cost of living. Food prices are going up, fuel, energy, all of that's going up. If that happens, going back to what our earlier conversation was in relation to gold and silver, it makes it even more relevant, doesn't it?
Yes, this is where I go back to the strategy of the thing. The strategic situation is we have the highest electricity in the world, the highest energy costs in the world. That's point one. That is a major plank. And that's something that we have to, and we also have the highest tax system outside Denmark, I think it is. We have the highest tax system probably in Europe. And so that's a problem. If you have high energy and high tax, a recession is totally inevitable. It isn't a question of will we have a recession. We will definitely have a recession because of those two things. And to use a military analogy here, it would be the same. Montgomery in the desert in North Africa, notwithstanding all the pressure he was getting when he replaced Auchinleck and others from Winston Churchill, he turned around and stood up and said, "I cannot advance. I cannot go forward across the desert against Rommel until I have enough petrol, enough tanks, and enough air support. And I'm not going to do it until I've got it." And he waited. And if you look at the number, it was interesting. The reason he kicked Rommel's ass is because he had more tanks, more petrol, and more aeroplanes. Right? That's how he did it. Montgomery was not a military genius, as they like people. He was all right. He was okay. He was sound, but he wasn't a genius. He wasn't a Marlborough. He wasn't a Wellington. So he actually waited. He had more stuff. And a good big one will always beat a good little. And I know, I used to box, and I boxed up a weight once against the Fleet Aeron many years ago, and got a bloody good pasting because he was bigger than me, and he wasn't bad. He wasn't very good, but he wasn't bad. But then I wasn't very good.
As a boxing fan, I can totally relate to that. But it's right. You've got to have the wherewithal, and you've got to have all of that, ready to go. I think Rachel Reeves is out of her depth. Starmer's clearly out of his depth. But the biggest problem for me, in particular with Starmer, is he's chosen Davos over the United Kingdom. He's chosen Davos over Westminster. He's on public record for doing it. And I think you're right. He is a bit of an oddball. There's no question of it. Now, I would agree with you that, different circumstances, people might find themselves in awkward situations, but he is an oddball. And I don't think that he likes the United Kingdom. He's certainly, words are easy. Actions really are what it's all about. And what he's done in terms of censorship and putting British patriots in prison, whilst these illegal migrants that are raping and abusing children and doing all the things that they're doing are let off. Or let out of prison early. I mean, it's appalling. I don't think this can continue. You mentioned something very early, a little bit earlier on. You talked about civil war. Very interested in what Professor David Betts is talking about. I've mentioned him a few times in other interviews I've done. I've now reached out to him because I'd like to interview him. But he's talking about a very real possibility of civil war, or a form of civil war that he terms the dirty war in the United Kingdom. And he's an academic at the War College in London. He's a very intelligent guy, and he is warning that this could happen. And once again, because of this massive illegal immigration that's going on, it's very divisive. When you hear about people like him, of his stature, talking about civil war, what do you think? Do you think we could see that? Because I think he's talking about potentially it could be happening in the next 2, 3, 4, or 5 years. I mean, that's a very short window frame.
Very interesting point. And it's a very complex, civil wars are rather complex. And they're so complex, they're not generally understood historically, as you will know as a fellow historian yourself. For example, I'll give an example of that. The American Civil War was not a civil war. It was a war between the northern states and the southern states. It was spun about slavery. It was, it was spun about slavery. It wasn't to do with that. It was about secession from the Union. So it's the North versus the South. Whereas the English Civil War, one of our many civil wars, but let's take the one of the Roundheads and the Cavaliers to make it simplistic for everyone, rather than going down an academic rabbit hole, was father against son, brother against brother on political principle. That's a civil war. The strength of Parliament, the divine right of kings. So it split families in the Civil War, in that particular Civil War. Now that's a civil war. In the same way that the Spanish Civil War was either royalist, communist, or whatever you wanted it to be, and there was brother against brother. That's a civil war. Now, generally speaking, those are ideological. Now, the question is, I don't think we will ever see an ideological civil war, because I don't think we have the depth, broadly speaking, of education in this country anymore since the late 1940s for people to actually take that view. But what they do know is when they're being shafted, and they know they're being shafted. Ordinary Middle England is being shafted. And so consequently, the concept of a civil war, it wouldn't be a civil war per se. It would be an uprising against the establishment. It wouldn't mean brother against brother, brother against son, or what, all these things. People will say, we can't go, we've been invaded, we have to kick the invaders out. It's as simple as that. Especially because when we were invaded by the Normans, they integrated. If you look at the concept of that after a few generations, the Normans integrated with the Saxons, and they were Christian. And so it merged, if you will. Now, you can't do that with people who have a completely different ethos in their millions. I mean, coming into this country, if you don't believe in fundamental women's rights as outlined in the Married Women's Property Act, for example, as opposed to sheer law, if you don't understand, if you don't like a pint at your local pub because you're anti-alcohol, if you don't like dogs, I know there's lots of people watching this, and I don't like dogs either, but frankly, we're a dog-loving nation, for better or for worse, whether you like it or not. Not everybody scoops, admittedly, but they should do. But that's the kind of nation we are. And we're a Christian nation. We don't go to church, I know. Many people do. And whose fault's that? The bishops, the archbishops who aren't Christians, agnostics. So we're Christian. We try to live Christian lives. Do as you would be done, you summing it up. Do as you would. Now, who goes to the barricades if they've got two cars in the garage, if they've got a nice house, they've got a reasonably plausible place to live? You don't go in for a civil war with a full belly. What you might see in a few years' time is a spontaneous uprising of people who shout enough. And I think there have been some hotels, immigrant hotels, burnt down in Northern Ireland. I don't know. I just think I might have seen something to that extent. And I'm not advocating this. I'm not advocating this. But if you have, like the people in Epping, for example, the Bell Inn and all that kind of thing, if you have these people molesting children, all male, all young males, there will be sooner or later, maybe not next year, maybe not the year after, you have to take it into your own hands. And I can tell you, and I'm not alone in this, although I'll probably get bloody a policeman coming round to call on me, you assault my wife or molest my wife or assault any members of my family, I will come round and I will give you a bloody good hiding, old as I am. Make no mistake. And I'm not alone in this feeling. And as for the police force, I would, who don't help us at all, I would disestablish this police force and I would start again with Peelite principles, with crime prevention, not reactionary police, which is what we have at the moment, and a two-tier justice system and the abandonment of the principles of English law. All these things, of course, Ben Habib has said he will do. And certainly, I'm watching him very closely. I don't join these parties. I don't join political parties. I think I can do more as a commentator, if you will. But certainly, if somebody stands for his party where I am, it's quite possible, notwithstanding my relationship with the local MP here, Sir David Davis, who's a particular mate and has helped me on many occasions, I would certainly look sympathetically upon it.
I have to say, I've got a lot of time for Sir David. He's one of those guys that, I mean, he's a former SAS, Special Air Service soldier. He's a tough guy. I've always admired David Davis, good guy. And the fact you got him as a neighbour and your MP actually is really quite good. But I think that the Conservatives lost their way. They're Conservative in name only. Apart from one or two decent people there in the party, they've kind of gone the same way into that whole globalist mindset. So as far as I'm concerned, they've got to go. But I take your point. Now, as a former military man, let me ask you my final question before I hand over to you to bring it to a close. If there is some kind of ideological civil war, I think you're right to point out that that's probably more likely to be the case, where it's the people against Starmer, it's the people against the government, rather than an ideological type situation. It's more like the people would be against what they see as the globalist elites running or abusing their position in the government. If that was to happen, there could be a situation where they might draw in the military. They may even declare martial law. What do you think the British soldiers would think if they were told to fire upon their own countrymen and women? Would they do it? Would they then side with the people, or would they just go along with what they're told to do? What do you think?
Well, there are significant numbers of soldiers and policemen leaving their institutions at the moment because they don't feel simpatico with what they're being asked to do. The British Army now is very small, and it's only about 50 or 60,000 regular, and you have your, of course, you have your reserves. I can tell you the reserves will leave. They won't go against their own people in their own communities. That I can tell you, and they never would have done. And they never would have done. Regular soldiers now, well, the standard of discipline is not quite what it was, but most soldiers come, not officers. The officer corps has been slightly debased in my view, but all old soldiers say that. The soldiers come from the working class communities who are under threat. And I have members of my family who are not officers, who are junior NCOs and things, who certainly wouldn't go to do baton charges against their neighbours who were trying to, avenge their family or their daughters or their wives or whatever it is. So I don't think the military are an option, and I think the police are becoming less and less of an option, maybe with the exception of the Metropolitan Police, which has been so desperately degraded in recent years that I don't even know who they are, what they are, or where they come from. But the Met Police are a disgrace. Up here in sleepy old East Yorkshire, our policemen aren't too bad.
Well, good to hear that. And yes, we don't want to see them wearing rainbow flags and uniforms and having their patrol cars decked out in rainbow colours. I mean, the whole woke agenda is all over. So Godfrey, we're almost out of time, but as I always do with my great guests, I always give them the last and final word. So over to you. The floor is yours, Godfrey.
Well, very quickly, all I would do, because I think my machine's running out of juice, I have a look at my website, godfreybloom.uk, if only for the comfort of feeling you're not alone. You're not alone.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're not alone. And Godfrey, I would just like to say a huge thank you to have you coming on. I know you're very busy moving house. It's one of the most stressful things that you can do, but I really appreciate you being here. And let me also wish you a very happy birthday on Saturday.
Thank you. I'm 76.
I was going to say, you'll be turning 40 then.
And thank you for inviting me on. Thank you for inviting me on.
My absolute pleasure. It's always good to see you, Godfrey, and we always set the world to rights. But if you and I were given the opportunity, I'm sure we could make a much better job of what was going on in the country. But maybe that'll happen. You never know. And I personally would love to see you join the Advanced UK College. I think your wisdom, your background, your knowledge would bring huge benefits, but you never know. You never know how that might go. But anyway, I want to say a huge thank you to you, and a huge thank you to the wonderful people out there listening to this. I really do appreciate the retweets, the shares, the comments. I do read them all. So thank you one and all. And until next time, this is Jim Ferguson, and we'll speak soon. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you so much.
As most of you know, my work is very heavily independently research-based. And I get my information from all over the world. It would help if you press the subscribe button and the little bell next to it, because the more subscribers I have, the more likely it is that international independent research institutes will share their material with me. It's most helpful, and then of course I automatically share it with you. So surprise, won't cost you anything. Thank you very much.